as well, as we are going into the pick phase, which is getting underway. Will be Heave. Will we be doing the first pick for the Gen.GxWeibo contingent? Just as a reminder, of course, with the 5 maps that you've already seen so far this season, it will be, of course, China, France, USA, Brazil, and Greece in the order that they were played. And we're going to be starting off on USA. This is a pretty popular pick for the Gen.GxWeibo contingent, and one of the maps where they were able to take down VP Neon during the regular season. Brazil gets picked then by the Team Cook guys, along with France, leaving just China and Greece as the last few maps to be picked from for map number 4. And now we're kind of pondering the choice. Well, although I'm thinking with Vosal's performance on Greece, oh, he decides to leave it as a decider. Okay, maybe Greece hasn't been so kind to him that he decides to kind of leave it on the side a bit and opt for China as map number 4.
That is the opposite of what I was expecting. I feel like we've seen China map 5 quite a lot over the course of this split. But no, China does actually get picked this time. Greece as the decider. I think it's going to be a bit more interesting. Hopefully we do manage to get to tracks 4 and 5. I mean, certainly if you look at the scoreboard, these two teams haven't played each other right next to each other on the leaderboard, 5th and 6th. So on paper, this has potential to be a very, very good match.
Yeah, on paper, this has the potential to be a good match. Just taking a look at the stats on USA, in terms of median, Wosal and Heave looking pretty consistent within each other's respects. 103.014 median in match for Wosal, 0.086 for Heave, and Scrappy and Lingo also to be consistent and in terms of the range within each other's times, but they are a little bit off the mark. 0.556 and a 0.545 for Scrappy and Lingo respectively in terms of median times. And in terms of sample sizes, we have a bigger sample size to compare from for the Gen.GxWeibo team. They have 55 rounds played on USA. 25% of those rounds were won by Wasal. 10 of those were won by Heave. So all in all, not too shabby. Just Heave may be a little bit more prone to be finishing down in the last few places. 16 rounds of the 55 that were played saw Heave finish in last place. And he also has 1 DNF against his name, whereas the others don't really have anything against their marks. So it will be very interesting to see how Heave kind of gets the ball rolling early and how often can he really be on the ball when it comes to clutch rounds.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be very, very important. I think kind of with the players on these teams, we're likely to see more inconsistency in this match than perhaps some of the others, certainly with the reputation of some of these players. So I'll be intrigued to see how that goes. Of course, I think it's been, I feel like, a bit of a broken record constantly saying consistency is a bit of a name of the game on these tracks, where there's so many different places that can throw you off. But yeah, it's gonna be really, really interesting. Do you have a prediction? Which team do you think is going to take this one away?
Honestly, prediction is a bit tough. I might appear biased, but I'm thinking Gen.GxWeibo 3-1. I'm not thinking like it's a clear walkout. At least one not going the way of Cook, but I feel like the Heave-Wosal duo is looking to kind of like continue getting their bearings together. Well, getting their bearings together, keep the ball rolling after both performing in the Elite Cup. Participating in the Elite Cup, and Wosal performing really well in that Elite Cup in that matter, even though the maps are a little bit different. But honestly, I think Gen.GxWeibo might have the upper hand compared to Scrappy and Lingo. Of course, I'd be glad to be proven wrong, and we're about to find out as round number 1 on map 1 is underway.
Yep, here we are starting out on USA. And I think the first big challenge of this map is always coming up towards this quarter pipe. Everyone looking to get a good exit from the bobsleigh section. Scrappy a little bit behind, but attempts can still be caught up, and we get our first casualty of the quarter pipe. It is first player to reach it. Wosal failing it twice, it looked like. They're going to be completely out of it this round. Pressure.
No, it was a single fail. It was a single fail.
Okay.
It was a single fail, but he just like went way too far to the left, way early, and thus went way too low. Even with all the speed in the world, he was going to be clipping the side of the quarter pipe, so that's what forced him to respawn. Scrappy also clipping a little bit on the way into checkpoint number 7, so it will be Heave and Lingo doing battle into basically the lead and trying to determine whether it will be a victory or a draw. We have forced a lift though on the double right-hander for Heave before the identity. It could still very much come all crashing down for Lingo though in said identity if he is not careful, but he has all the care in the world there, the Canadian, and we'll be finishing with a 102.850, a decent time to kick things off. Heave will at least bring a point on the board for the Gen.GxWeibo contingent, and it will be the red side leading 2-1.
Yeah, very strong end there from Lingo to be able to get the overtake done and to move up into first place, managed to give Cook an early advantage. But I think it's hard to read too heavily into that round. You know, you had two players make a mistake, Wozal, who we know is a very talented player in particular. We didn't really get to see anything from, so yeah, hard to get too much of a read at this stage.
Hard to get a read at this stage, indeed, as we see through the quarter pipe, everybody making it through clean now. Wosal, without any respawns, will be going toe-to-toe with Lingo at the end of the first sector, the first 4 to 5 checkpoints. Scrappy languishing a little bit behind. We'll try to chase down Heave, currently sitting in third, as we go through checkpoint 6 and the jump onto the road. And once again, Scrappy falls foul of that winding right-hander before the ice patch and the dirt flick. Heave getting very close to hitting the breeze block there, and he's very lucky to get away with it, although he has to rely on his teammate to try and enforce a counter victory to try and level the playing field again.
Well, we didn't get to see Wozal's pace this time, last time, but we're seeing it this time, and it's looking pretty fast, running away from Lingo here. Can they hold on? Ooh, just about. That was not the cleanest of endings from Wozal, but it's still enough to pick up first place. Heave, unfortunately, having a clip, though, and reduces what Gen.GxWeibo can get to just 1 single point from that round.
Yeah, indeed, and also that was somewhat not helped by the fact that we had a very significant clip on the part of Heave going into the identity. Right at the first helper from the first corner, Heave actually clipped with, I think it was the left rear of his car, or the left front, at least one of the wheels on the left side got hooked, which prompted the Frenchman to drop down into 4th and last place. In the meantime, through that 3rd round we go. It will be Lingo languishing a bit behind after the first few checkpoints, and he will try to make the junction towards the leading trio, although he loses a lot of time, hand over fist on the dirt there. So Scrappy has to pick up the slack and try to enforce the draw to keep that 1 point lead intact, or at the very least of occasions, try to bring a point home.
Yeah, and Lingo managing to get through the kind of dirt flick very, very well. Moves up into 1st, and suddenly it's not about can Scrappy bring home a point for Cook. It's whether or not Cook can get an ace here, possibly even led by Lingo. Heave is out of this one, so it's all on Wozal to try and deny the ever so costly ace from going away of Cook. Really goes for it at the end, and it pays off. Manages to find their way into 2nd. It is still advantage Cook from that round. It's a 2 points for Cook, 1 for Gen.GxWeibo, but it stops that massive 3-point swing from occurring. Important save there from Wozal.
Yeah, and it's a very important one for Wosal to have gotten on the board, because so far he has not shown signs of life here on this map. He does have the best time out of the bunch of those on the server. He has a 102.439 to his credit, driven in match, and you can see it is also his personal best on the bottom left of the screen. But so far, the performance hasn't been there. He's always fallen foul of the identity pretty much every single round. He really needs to actually get his act together and fine-tune this identity if he wants to make any kind of impact. An impact that will be a little bit easier this round, courtesy of Scrappy clobbering the wall at the exit of the dirt from checkpoint number 5.
Yeah, important opportunity here for Gen.GxWeibo to try and claw back. But that is poor from Wozal, hitting the breeze block on the outside there. It's a very, very common mistake on this track. So suddenly it is Heave in the pressure seat, and Heave has unfortunately gone into the outside wall there, so it looks like it's going to be a draw for this round. All players separated by about half a second each after the various crashes and mistakes from all. Bit of a missed opportunity there for Gen.GxWeibo. They really should have been able to get a victory at least.
Lots of attrition here on this round, and that's a very much a missed opportunity. You're right in saying that that's an opportunity to kind of close the gap back down and make the junction in the points has been thrown into the bin. As we go on to the next round, 6 points for Cook, 4 for Gen.GxWeibo. Cook just 1 point away from their first map point attempt. As we go on to the next round, it will be so far so good for everybody. Any mistakes, any mishaps at the quarter pipe? We very narrowly slid off the track there for Wosal. Remember, you're still landing into the other side of the quarter pipe with cold tires, so it's very easy to slide out if you turn it a little bit too quickly. And right now, the man from Gen.GxWeibo has to catch up, but he has the job a lot easier for him this time, as Lingo goes all over the racetrack and then some, promoting Wosal up into 3rd before the dirt flick.
Yeah, and Scrappy doesn't exactly get it well, so Wozal in a position now to even fight for 2nd up against Scrappy. I think Gen.GxWeibo really need an ace here if they want to stop this going out of their control, but Wozal makes another mistake. This ending has not been kind to Gen.GxWeibo at all. Heave gonna hold on for, I believe, a first win of the match. And Wozal somehow still gets past Lingo. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I didn't catch it.
Well, somehow, I'll tell you how. Lingo clipped somewhat heavily. You know that final crest? before the plastic, he clipped the edge of the plastic, slowing him down just enough for Wosal to sneak away into third place and thus allow Gen.GxWeibo to bridge the gap back down to a single point. 7 points for Cook, 6 for Gen.GxWeibo. Map point attempt number 1 for Cook, but they are not far away from seeing the blue side return in form on their own map pick. Right now, Heave getting a solid start and will be leading Lingo at the end of the first sector. And Lingo goes a little bit too harshly, too high on the dirt, but so does Heave. And Scrappy is there to continue to be a bit of a party spoiler for the blue side.
Yeah, it's a cost mistake from Heave. Gets rid of a decent ace opportunity. So we've got Wosal and Scrappy fighting it out the front. Oh, and Scrappy goes into the breeze block. Suddenly, the ace looks like it could be back on. Landing on a 9-7 scoreline would be very nice for Gen.GxWeibo compared to where they currently are. All they need to do is just be able to safely navigate this identity. They have a second to spare. They should not need to push at all if they've got their HUDs on. And for what does unfortunately feel like the first time this track, both players managed to navigate their way through the identity. Gen.GxWeibo managing to try and snatch victory from jaws of defeat. They've looked on the back foot this entire time, suddenly finding themselves in a good position, as this will certainly be the last round on this track.
Maybe a case of both players being a bit like diesel engines, taking a lot of time to warm up before they're performing optimally. Right now looking to try and flip the script on its head, although Team Cook might still be in with a shot of actually dominating on this, well, say dominating and thus taking the jump on Gen.GxWeibo, especially considering that we see a bit of a clip on the landing into the quarter pipe from Heave before the end of the first few checkpoints. Lingo and Scrappy now have a 3.5 lead. It's really their round to lose at this point.
Yeah, I mean, a counter race is the only way that they're able to win this track, and this certainly looks like the best start we've seen from Cook this entire time. Neither of them getting caught out by the breeze block. Heave has crashed, so it is Wosal versus both Cook players. If he can get past at least one of them, Gen.GxWeibo will manage to take the map. And he's pushing and he's trying. Oh, and that is a mistake from Lingo. How costly is that? For a second, I thought we were about to see Cook manage it, but Wosal claws their way into second after a big mistake from Lingo. And that identity claims yet another victim, giving the map to Gen.GxWeibo.
I think it's safe to say that Gen.GxWeibo are going to be wiping up the sweat off their foreheads, thinking, man, we dodged a bullet with that one. That could have gone ugly really, really quickly with Lingo and that clip on the midway part of the identity into the second corner before the ring CP, I think, is what caused that identity and that round to unravel for the red side. As we take a look again at some of the more defining moments here on that opening map. Next up will be Brazil, which is the first of the two Team Cook picks. And looking at Brazil, Lingo has a 0.848 median, a 0.860 median for Scrappy, so they're looking very much dialed in. I was looking at the best and thought it was median. Sorry, I was maybe selling a little bit too much of a dream there. That would have been absolutely checking PC territory. Yeah, the best 0.848 and 0.860 are still very good times. Medians, they're a bit more like it. 0.270 for Scrappy, which is still very good. 0.575 for Lingo, who's trailing a little bit, also trailing on the two Gen.GxWeibo guys, but maybe a little bit more in tune with each other. A 0.393 median for Heave and a 0.462 median for Wosal, and also a good sample size on the side of the Team Cook team. Out of 53 rounds that this team have played, 15 have been won by Scrappy, a 28.3% win rate. So Gen.GxWeibo are going to have to do a lot of groundwork if they want to try and somewhat upset and rattle Cook a little bit here on their first map pick.
Yeah, that is, it's a pretty decent scoreline, or match history, I guess, for Scrappy here and Team Cook. So, yeah, we'll have to see. It's always such an interesting map, Brazil. I think it is certainly a map where you really do not know who's going to win until you cross the finish line. Like, the most dramatic and moments and biggest time games are usually found kind of through that final section as they try and weave between all the rocks, kind of gliding over water. But for now, we are underway with round one, and in a bit of a repeat of last time, it is Wosal on the back foot. Not quite as far as USA, though.
Yeah, not quite as far as USA, indeed, and still very much in the hunt as we are going on to the first glider part. It will be Heave still leading, and Wosal going very aggressive on that final right-hander before the end of the first glider. He will still be going toe-to-toe with Lingo and Scrappy, also making it a three-way fight for second as we go on to the plastic quarter pipe. Checkpoint number 13, what the split will be. It will be a 0.618, so likely a 104.2 until we see Heave with a very significant clip in the outer edges of the hole of the dirt before checkpoint 14, and what could have been a draw or maybe even a victory for Gen.GxWeibo, it will be transformed into an ace for Cook after we see, well, Heave's troubles, and then of course the little bit of a paying of a visit to Dwayne from Wosile, and that will be Lingo Scrappy first and second. 3-0 for Team Cook, looking to try to stop the fight back.
Yeah, that's not exactly the dream start to your own map pick, is it? Some big crashes there from Gen.GxWeibo. I mean, last track they had to try and fight back a bit. This is already a bigger gap than they had to deal with on USA, though. Aces so costly to give away. And it's not like they were really being beaten on pace. They were up, they were in a decent position, and just the mistakes came out for both players and has put them in a really, really awkward position for now. Heave leading way. Last time looked in a position to go and win the round, seems to be reassuming that role. Lingo chasing them down, Heave trying to avoid any mistakes. I think it was after this corner, wasn't it, where Heave...
yeah, it was at the hole right there. 0.402, this is a very solid split, though. We might be getting into the 103s, or at the very worst, 104.0s. Lingo trailing Heave by 0.2 of a second, and then he further trails Scrappy by another 0.2. Wosile is completely out of the picture. Let's see what the stopwatch says here on this round from Heave. It will be a 103.928. We're dipping into the 103s after an attrition-laden first round. The second round is much better quality when it comes to the end product on the timesheets. 1-4. It will be a draw at the end of that round, and Team Cook will still have their 3-point lead intact.
Yeah, well called there on it being a 103. It's one of the consequences of this format. You know, Heave has a brilliant round, manages to drive 103, but in reality, for the overall match, it hasn't actually made much of a difference because Wosile did not look to have a very good time at all. And I think General hasn't really shown much pace in the first two rounds on this track. It's certainly up there this time, still trailing the leading pack a tiny bit, but you know, it's half tenth there, half tenth here. It's not a major difference, but Heave once again in the lead, really looking to be the difference maker for Gen.GxWeibo on Brazil. Bit of the opposite way around, I'd say, to USA.
Yeah, a bit of the opposite round, way around, but this time Wosile will be able to back his teammate up potentially as he finds himself a 10th and a half ahead of Lingo, who doesn't have the best of rounds in the Scrappy as well, is having some issues of his own, currently sitting 8/10 down. Lingo trying to mount a fight back for this round, and Wosile will be crashing into the gate and thus throwing a lifeline to Lingo, allowing thus the Canadian to get a point on the board, and that will also be the draw as Wosile flips into the finish after briefly grazing the rock on the way into the final checkpoint. That one has gotta hurt. That was a very solid ace opportunity thrown in the bin in the space of two separate mistakes that happened over the course of the last, 5 seconds of the map? That's gotta hurt.
Yeah, that was very painful to watch. I think even both of them were very good saves after the mistake had happened, but it still cost Wosile best part of second, and that was enough for both Cook players to be able to get past. Oof. And suddenly in this round, where Heave has really been torchbearer for Gen.GxWeibo so far on Brazil, Heave is a second down, completely out of it. It is all on Wosile here to try and deny a second ace coming out from Cook, and to try and stop them completely running away from this map. But I gotta say, this is not looking good for Gen.GxWeibo at all.
This is looking pretty grim indeed. We had a very troublesome start for Heave, and then a little bit of a bug on the way into checkpoint number 5 from Wosile, who's still very much in battling with Lingo for the benefit of third place. Let's see what the final gliders will be deciding here. It will be Lingo still a 10th to a 10th and a half ahead, going in the slalom in between the rocks as Heave continues to respawn. The late attack from Scrappy will not parlay into an ace for Team Cook. It will still be the victory, and thus it will be 7-3 at the end of this round, and Team Cook on map point number 1, attempt number 2 in a sense.
Yeah, they found themselves kind of on 7 points on USA. Weren't able to close out that time. Admittedly, at that point, Gen.GxWeibo were on 6 points rather than 3, so this is a far, far better opportunity for Cook. I think if that last round had been an ace, I'd be declaring this map over. I think Gen.GxWeibo do have a way in. They just have to find an ace, basically this round, and they're having a good start if that's what they're chasing.
Yeah, they're having a solid start for now as we are currently following this round. Scrappy going a little bit wider in the glider, trying to find some more speed compared to the rest of the field, including his teammate. Right now, he's at the tail end of the 4-player race at the front, and we go very high, very early. Too early for Wosal. Scrappy gets promoted up to third as a result. Keeve will be trying to anchor the fort at the front with a 45.544 split at checkpoint number 13, but Lingo is continuing to make him work for it and actually overhauls Heave for second place, or for first place rather, and Heave down to second, and full stall picks into the gate before the penultimate checkpoint. And with that, Cook make a very quick deal on Brazil. 10-3 the final score. Lingo scoring a 104.117. It looked a little bit shaky on the first chicane of the final glider there, but then Heave basically completely out of the picture after he crossed into the gate in the penultimate hairpin there.
Yeah, that is not how I expected that map to go at all. Cook performing very, very well, and just so many costly mistakes from Gen.GxWeibo. It wasn't like it was even small clips right at the start. It always seemed to be kind of right towards the end when they may be in a good formation for an ace or a victory, or to really claw some points back, and instead they kind of would both crash and just hand an ace to Cook. So yeah, very unfortunate for Gen.GxWeibo. The script not being followed at all in terms of I think both teams have now won each other's map picks, so it's very hard to have a call now on what's going to happen. I feel like Cook have looked like the stronger team overall. They were a bit unlucky not to be able to win on USA, and then really did dominate Brazil.
Yeah, indeed. Gen.GxWeibo were kind of more lumbering through their opening map pick than anything else, and yeah, Gen.GxWeibo definitely looking a little bit more on the back foot as we see from the match progression. Cook a little bit more in a stronger position. Taking a look at the stats from France, in terms of median, Lingo is looking very good on the 107.915. His teammate Scrappy a little bit off the pace, a 0.197 in the 108s. Wosal is kind of split in the difference between the middle. He's got a 108.028 in terms of median, but Lingo's best time as well, 107.055 in match. This is a very, very strong showing from the Canadian. That's actually his personal best as well overall on this map. And out of 45 rounds that he and Scrappy have played on this map, 31% of those have been won by Lingo. 14 round wins out of 35, but almost an equal number of last place finishes as well. 13 rounds out of 45 in last place, and also 3 DNFs. So that glass cannon sort of performance rating is showing itself again. Let's hope for Lingo that it does not show as prominently as it did perhaps in previous days.
Yeah, they're really going to have to hope it. As we are underway here on France, a map where I think errors through the kind of early stage aren't too common, but there's a couple of places that can really, really trip them up as they get further through. Here is one of the first ones that we're going to see any players going into this outside wall. No, actually, they all managed to hold on quite cleanly. This jump can cause a few issues as well, but none happening for now. So we're actually going to get all 4 players heading towards the identity in fairly close proximity. Slight advantage to Gen.GxWeibo, with Wosal sat in third and Heave battling for the lead. But now we get the identity. This is an identity, I think, perhaps more so than some of the others. You can really push, but it is risky to do so. And Lingo, happy to play risky, and does manage to snipe their way up into first. Wosal unable to hold on to third place as well. So, yeah, that is an immediate victory for Cook.
Yeah, and it all stemmed from that very aggressive setup, that, well, not quite very aggressive, but more aggressive setup for Lingo on the first transfer compared to Heave. And speaking of the devil, Heave gets a clip at the top of the grass hill. This is always a bit of a painful one to get, but pointing the period on the previous round, Lingo with a much more aggressive setup compared to Heave moved up into first, and I suspect the same thing happened for Scrappy versus Wosal, or maybe Wosal had some troubles of his own. As we go into round number 2, it will be the man from Gen.G currently anchoring the lead of the round. Nobody going for the no-slide attempt here on this map just yet. It looks as though we might be just playing it a little bit more cool, a little bit more safe as we go onto checkpoint number 6, the jump into the dirt. And we're fairly conservative, actually, in the top 2, not going all the way towards the outside wall. Oh, that's a low jump from Lingo. Does get a good landing to boot, however, so he will be going neck and neck and wheel to wheel against Wosal for 20 milliseconds at checkpoint number 8. He's forced to respawn, so it's all on Wosal's shoulders now that the hopes of Gen.GxWeibo remain, and it looks as though he will get a little bit of room to breathe, but he does get a clip as well in the first transfer, so he must not well, let this guard down, basically, as I completely fumble my words, but you can see that Wosal will be able to clear the last few hurdles and thus reach the finish line in first place with a .591. Scrappy and Lingo not in any position to retaliate. Well, Lingo was until he clipped the inside before checkpoint number 9, and with that, Cook still have a points lead, but that would have been something more maybe up for grabs, I think, for the red side.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance, but that poor entry kind of meant that they weren't able to capitalize on Wosal's slight clip on the identity, but Wosal did well to hold it through the identity despite that and hold on to first place, limit the damage to just a draw. So they're going to want to be able to try and start catching up soon, but Heave making another mistake. Doesn't seem to be having a fun time on this map so far. It feels like on a lot of the transfers, I think that's 2 out of 3 rounds a transfer clip has occurred for Heave, so not going to be too pleased with that, and it once again falls onto Wosal to try and defend that first place, and is currently doing so very well.
I gotta say though, Scrappy nearly flipped. He skimmed the top of the barrier in a very Gwen-esque move, manages to get away with it, and will be going toe-to-toe against Wosal. Scrappy battling for first place, currently sitting in second, goes for the safer strat, and does not basically have any shot of clipping Wosal for the lead. Wosal will be guaranteeing another draw as his teammate continues to have troubles and respawns once again. Will he be able to clear the identity? Yes, the final transfer will be done, and he will cross the finish line with 6 seconds left on the buzzer. 4-3 at the end of the third round here on France, and it seems as though we're in the same kind of repeat scenario to what we saw in USA with Gen.GxWeibo. Cook did get the advantage early, but they're more lumbering through the map than anything else.
Yeah, I am getting a little bit of deja vu. Thinking about map 1, and even round 2 and 3 here looked very similar in terms of how it all worked out. But so yeah, I think Gen.GxWeibo would like to try and get a lead at some point soon, not be kind of stuck fighting from behind the entire time. We're lucky to get away with it on USA, but this time it is Wosal clipping and pressure onto Heave's shoulders. Can Heave hold on for another draw here? It seems to be a position Gen.GxWeibo find themselves in a lot of having one player in last place and the other one desperately holding on for a win. They pull it off more often than not, but Lingo really hounding Heave now, trying to get past, trying to make sure that Cook can try and extend their lead beyond just a single point, but it currently is. We head into the identity. Who's going to be able to push it more? Oh, Lingo lucky to get away with that one. Looked like a slight clip. Does get past Heave for now. Scrappy gets past Heave. And is this going to be an ace for Cook? It looked like it is. And Heave's first place diminishes down in third. 3 points go the way of Cook. And a 7-3 scoreline. That's hard to pull yourself back from.
Yeah, Heave that was able to pull the role that Wosal was pulling off. Basically trying to be the dependable teammate. I should say try to pull that off, but unfortunately in the identity everything kind of came unstuck as he bobbled quite severely in the midway part of the identity in the second transfer. I think that happened, and that promoted Lingo up into the lead and Scrappy up into second. Lingo, who got away with a very significant clip on the very first transfer, as you mentioned, and of course Wosal a little bit earlier on in that round clipped on the way into checkpoint number 5. I think it was checkpoint 4 into the dirt as well, where he clipped his right front, and that completely cemented his place down in last. And with Heave into the wall, that might be cementing the map going the way of Team Cook by the end of this round. We try to go for the low jump on the part of Lingo, a bit of a bobble on the landing, and that might be throwing Heave and Wosal back into the mix as they continue to keep pace with the Canadian player. Currently Scrappy, his teammates, leading the way by less than a tenth. Heave trying to go a little bit more aggressive this time compared to what he was able to pull off, but he doesn't have the speed to really parlay that into any kind of position. Lingo, though, has troubles of his own. Heave versus Scrappy on the final part, and Wosal will make it an ace as well. This is absolutely paramount that they were able to get this round down. It will slash the gap down to a single point of a deficit, and with that, Gen.GxWeibo might just be still saying, hey, we might still take this to Game 4 anyway. Well, to Game 5 maybe, potentially. Game 4 is guaranteed. Game 5, watch out for us.
Yeah, that was a very strange round. If you'd told me that Gen.GxWeibo would end up the ace kind of at this point in the map last time, I'm not sure I would have believed you, but Heave, about 6 attempts behind, isn't going to be able to play too much of a factor in this track, or in this round even, unless there is a mistake coming out from one of the 2 Cook players. So Wosal trying to hold on to first for the time being. A scoreline of 6-7, it does put them in, some level of risk of getting aced. So they need to be careful around that, but they'll mainly just want to avoid the gap getting any bigger when they have a player out of the count. Mozal now has to make a bit of a decision. How much do they want to risk? Because the two Cook players are right hot on his heels. Because if he clips them, it is all over on this track, and if he gets overtaken by both of them, it is also all over. So he'll just have to try and win the round as best he can, and seems to be doing a good job of that so far. Oh, Scrappy really going for it. Photo finish there. But Scrappy unable to quite get past 26 thousandths of a second behind. So Mozal, limited damage to 1 point again, and Gen.GxWeibo stay in this.
Gen.GxWeibo stay in this, and they are just an ace away from potentially stealing that map from Cook, although with the dynamic that the map currently has, it's not really looking all too likely. But as I said, say every now and then, anything can happen in Trackmania, and usually does, so we're not any safe from surprises happening. First surprise is Lingo, kind of falling by the wayside in checkpoint number 3. He has somewhat messed up the entry to that checkpoint, going a bit wide, and Scrappy also looking a little bit off the mark right now in checkpoint number 4. He still is making contact with Heaves Ghosto, so is Lingo, so Team Cook are still very much in the hunt, and we see Scrappy again falling a little bit behind, having a bit of a pace deficit at this late stage of the map, and Wosal goes a little bit low, a bit slow there into the jump into the dirt, hits a little bit of an inside line on the dirt that will also somewhat slow him down, so Lingo gets promoted up into the lead, Heave down to second. It will be all onto the identity to potentially turn things around here for the Gen.GxWeibo outfit, but Lingo gets a picture-perfect transfer. Scrappy versus Wosal. Scrappy is way too far behind, and a big clip from Heave. Might that be to the advantage of Scrappy? The answer is a no. Scrappy again too far behind, and it will be Lingo taking the round win with a points 1-1-2. Strong time overall, 9-8 for Cook versus Gen.GxWeibo. Gen.GxWeibo absolutely need a victory if they want to push this map into overtime.
Yeah, very strong time from Lingo there, and that entire round felt like the opposite of what we're used to seeing, where it was a mistake from one of the Cook players dropping down to 4th, and then Lingo trying to have to hold on to 1st place, but manages to get away with it, so we're now really into the danger zone for both teams. Even a draw at this stage would be enough for Cook, so Gen.GxWeibo can't find themselves in that position again where they have one player far behind, because there's nothing to hold on to for at this stage. And all players still up there for the time being. Lingo 3rd, Wosal 4th, Heave and Scrappy scrapping for 1st and 2nd. Is everyone going to make it through this dirt jump okay? Yes, they do. Ooh, Lingo gets a poor landing and looks to drop a gear there, so Lingo is going to be out of it. A victory here would take us to overtime, which, given how close these two teams have been over the duration of the entire league, when you look at their overall win-loss rates, it kind of feels fitting to get some overtime action. Heave is going to do their part, getting into 1st. Is Wosal going to hold on 3rd? Yes, they do. Lingo looking to have a bigger mistake in the identity. We get overtime.
Get overtime indeed, and it's been the first time in a while since we've actually had an overtime here on an Overdrive match, if I am not mistaken, and thus it will be, well, first team to get the advantage in terms of points will get the map win in the books, as we will be next moving on to China. If I'm not mistaken, yes, it will be China, map number 4 after this one. And we see actually, Scrappy going over center on the sausage roll before checkpoint number 3, and that will be giving the advantage to the Gen.GxWeibo team for now, at least, because there are still 2 sectors to go. Wosal with a very aggressive setup through the long dirt right-hander, and will thus take the lead away from his teammate, who is also getting overhauled by Lingo. So Lingo is looking to try and push this into a second round of overtime until he clips the wall. So it does Heave, actually. So Wosal has to now keep the dream alive, as Heave is forcing himself to respawn, who had no speed at all going into that first set of jumps there.
If things stay as they are, we're going to move to 11-11, and overtime is going to continue here. Neither team being able to get an advantage, but pressure onto Wosal's shoulders again is going to have to avoid making any mistakes, and this identity should be safe from being caught just based off pure pace, having a free advantage heading into it. But Scrappy, lucky to make it across, but does make it across, and we get another draw.
Well, not only Scrappy, there was also Wosal, who had a very who had the same kind of clip up front. That's hence the whoa. I was going to say whoa Nelly a little bit earlier on, but yeah, 11-11 at the end of that round, and with that, the the battle on fronts continues, and I think it's a good a time as any for you guys to use the Trolla emote in the chat, because I feel like we might be here for a while as we go on to the next overround time, and this time it is Heve's turn to go over center in the sausage roll before checkpoint 3, and Lingo clips the arch of the checkpoint in checkpoint number 3, so it will be Scrappy versus Wosal up ahead to determine who gets the upper hand and who will force this into a third consecutive overtime.
Yeah, I mean, Scrappy wins this. We get the 12-12 scoreline. Wosal wins this, and they managed to pick up another map where they looked behind for quite some time. And it's looking positive for Gen.GxWeibo here. Actually, he's the only one to really get through that section unscathed, because a very, very poor landing. I wonder if even
what was that? What was that jump? Sorry to interject, but yeah, like he went full outside on the second dip and then full nosedive, and I think I suspect that he either landed with his left front first or clip the top of the barrier, because after that, it completely wrecked his momentum, and that is going to be cementing his third place. And what is also cemented is the map going the way of Gen.GxWeibo, pulling a little bit of an upset on the right side there by winning that map 13-12. The times are not quite as good, they're not pretty, but they will get the job done for Heave and Wosal as they retake the series lead 2 maps to 1. And this is an important one, Patster, because next up is China, and guess who picked this map? It's the blue side that picked it.
Ooh, so they do get an opportunity on their own map pick. I've realised I would like to apologise for at the start of this map. I got the map picks the wrong way rounded. You know, both teams not really having a logo makes it a little harder to follow.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult, isn't it?
It hasn't helped just having the Overdrive logo there for both of them. But so yeah, I did get it backwards. Script was being followed until that point. Gen.G managing to win the Cook map pick, but I always feel like by the time you get into the 4th map pick, the idea of map picks starts to fall apart a little bit, because there's only 5 maps to pick from. You'd say that Gen.GxWeibo should be happier on China than on Greece, is kind of what they've said by picking it, but yeah, I mean, every map bar Brazil so far has been like really close, and getting multiple rounds of overtime there as well shows how tight it is between these two teams. I think it's going to be really, really hard to call what happens here on China.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say, well, I say that might be a little bit tougher to call. I was going to back myself up with stats, but unfortunately on the Gen.GxWeibo, not on the Gen.GxWeibo, on the Cook side, there has been many rounds that have been played, so not really that big of a sample size to be reported. Also, there might be some data that we might have missed, so we are not really able to do any kind of accurate analysis on that side. But for the Gen.GxWeibo contingent, Heave is probably looking very strong on this map. Out of 40 runs that were played by the Gen.GxWeibo team that were reported to ECM on China, 17 of those have been won by Heave. Wosal has only 6 round wins under his belt out of the 40, both having the same rate of last place finishes, and both without any DNS, as we see. Well, oh my god, synchronized bug slide backflip fails into respawns. What is it? Are we playing a skating game or whatever? I don't know anymore, Patster.
That was a thing of beauty. Perhaps not if you're a Gen.GxWeibo fan, then it's not a thing of beauty at all. But yes, even synchronized swimming and diving doesn't tend to look that good, but it has really handed the advantage to Cook here. Even Lingo had a poor start, I think clipped pretty much as soon as the map began. It does find themselves into 2nd place. So Cook, yeah, looking to get an early ace here, a bit like the last track through Gen.GxWeibo's mistakes. But yeah, very strange to see the exact same mistake almost before we even got to the bug slide. It was just the setup for the bug slide is where it went wrong.
Yeah, just the setup. Well, the setup for the bug slide, the jump out of the corner before trying to angle your car up and then hitting the pole. I mean, we've seen people hit the pole trying to set up themselves up with bug slides. That's not that uncommon. But to see both clip at the exact same moment and rotate in the exact same fashion. Really, that's really what gets me here in that opening round, is that both had the exact same backflip and almost respawn at the exact same millisecond. This time it will be Wosal all on his own, failing the bug slide setup, and Scrappy Lingo don't get the best of exits from the bug slide. It will be Heave, Wosal's teammate, who will pull a 3.5 lead over the rest of the field, and that might just be what the doctor ordered for Gen.GxWeibo as they desperately try to get a grip on their map pick here on map 4.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong start from Heave, so Again, this recurring theme of one of Gen.GxWeibo players crashing and the other one having to come to rescue seems to strike again. Heave this time having to be the rescuer in first place. It looks like Lingo is trying to catch up, but I think of all the identities, this one is probably the place where you see the least mistakes and the least time gain. So going in with almost, well, over half a second advantage for Heave, I think there's very little chance of that being lost. So it looks like it's going to be a draw from this round.
Draw for this round that will be pronounced now, and Heave with a decent time, 105.573, going the way of the Frenchman from Weibo Gaming, and with that there will be 1 point on the board for the blue side because of Wosal's unfortunate mishaps at the setup for the bug slide. Round number 3 is underway on China. Are there going to be any heartbreaks this time around? Yes, this time it is Heave, I think, briefly grazing the pole this time around. It will be Lingo and Wosal getting the best bug slide out of those that were pulling it off. Scrappy has quite the deficit to make up. In fact, almost 0.6 of a second of a gap compared to his teammates, and Wosal also getting gapped a little bit by Lingo before the ice slide of checkpoint number 4. He's going to have a lot of catching up work to do now.
Yeah, I feel like Scrappy's going to be looking more over his shoulder than at the pair ahead at 7 attempts down at this stage. So yeah, Wosal and Lingo are protagonists having the duel at the front for this round. And, ooh, that is a clip from Lingo. I think that was on the left-hand wall. Allows Scrappy to get past him. It's actually made up a lot of time to the pair of them.
Yeah, actually what happened, you're absolutely right. That was effectively a clip from on the top of the wall as he went a bit too high before checkpoint number 9 and before the drop down out of the dirt, which is what prompted Lingo to get demoted to 3rd. And with that, Wosal will be filling in for Heave from the previous round and thus anchor the first place and thus the draw and going the way of Gen.GxWeibo in terms of the points getting flowed into, but they need to get a counter ace really quickly, or at the very least a victory if they want to try to slash that gap back down.
Yep, 3-point gap isn't fun to see at all, although they might have a slightly better opportunity here with Lingo completely out of it, but it still wasn't a great start from Gen.GxWeibo. So Scrappy. Now, actually, a player who I feel like I haven't ended up mentioning that much over the course of this match, seems to have been picking up a lot of kind of consistent kind of 2nd and 3rd places for Cook, but does find themselves in a leading position for the time being. Heave trying to catch up. We know Heave has a lot of pace on this track. Oh, Scrappy looks to clip a wheel onto the snow, but then Heave goes into the right-hand kind of inside wall. And now it's Scrappy versus Wosal, super tight through this section. Identity.
I think he might have attempted a Master Verstappen technique, which is to try to get to the apex first, but he did not work out for Heave in that way. As Wosal will try to catch back up to Scrappy, he has a little bit more speed going out of that first ice turnaround, but the gap is already too big and unassailable at this point, so it will be the draw enforced at the end of that round, and it all really stemmed from that bug slide fail on the part of the Gen.GxWeibo guys. Well, they didn't hit the wall on the setup like Lingo did, but they were not able to pull it off quite consistently, and they were forced to, their cars were kind of washing out towards the outside of the corner and forced them to take the safe way, as we see, I think it was Lingo, and now Heave setting themselves up and dramatically failing at setting up for the bug slide. Wosal gets the best exit, and now the gaps are quite spread out. If you just take a look at the helicopter camera, maybe over on production, you'll see just how far apart the cars are at the moment. You can see that from overhead. We get a good chunk of the map visible now, and that's not going to be getting any better as Scrappy slides out of the checkpoint 4 ice slide. He promoted it back up to 3rd. That will be doing a good service for Gen.GxWeibo on this stage of the map.
Yeah, I think everyone here is just going to have to try and stay clean. I don't think there's anything that Lingo and Scrappy are able to do with the gaps they've got to the players ahead. So yeah, it's just on Gen.GxWeibo to try and keep things neat and tidy heading through its identity. It doesn't tend to cause many issues, so they are at least going to claw 1 point back against Cook. They are going to let Cook go on to onto map point though. So map 5 is looking kind of likely. We'll see.
Yeah, Looks like we might be heading to Greece after all. Well, we still have to wait to see if Gen.GxWeibo are able to pull a clean start. I think that's the the thing here that really makes or breaks around on China is very much the start, again, with that bug slide setup. So far, everybody managing to navigate through the first sets of corners. Everybody getting the bug slide. Who gets the best exit, though? It will be actually even Lingo going side by side. Wosal as well, making it a three-way fight for the lead. Scrappy just a little bit off the mark. 3/10 down, but we are not safe from seeing any kind of mistakes happen, like a slide out here at checkpoint number 4. It will not happen this time around, so he might need to stand on it or pray for another mistake to happen, but he's going to be running out of road really quickly, the Belgian now.
Yeah. I think this is quite a nice round. It feels like first time we've seen everyone kind of get through the start well, but yeah, Scrappy behind. So it's on Lingo to try and make sure that 2-point lead is maintained. I don't think there's any opportunity for Cook to be able to win the map on this round. So need to hold on, try and maintain a gap of at least 2 points. But Scrappy, honestly, not too far behind Wosal here. That would put Cook in a really good position, but isn't able to catch up through the final turnaround. It's another draw. I'd love to actually see the final statistic at the end of this. At the end of this match, is how many draws we've had. It has been a lot of them, it's felt like. But the gap maintained at 2 points. Cook do move slightly closer to map victory, though.
Well, might not be happening this round, depending on how Scrappy does. Wosal also failing the bug slide, forcing himself on the outside wall as well. There's a lot of damage, as one would say. And Heave, in the meantime, did not put a foot wrong, and thus will have a second of a lead in that first sector. He's completely out of the overtake zone for the rest of the people. Not completely out. There's still a 10th in it, but whatever. Heave has quite the gap to manage now, and we see Scrappy and Lingo just looking to try and enforce the status quo, continue to draw things out, which will put us on one final round, more than likely, here on China, as it will be a 7-9 scoreline that would be pronounced. He does need to get it across the road and across the line in first place, though, for that scenario to happen.
Yeah, although not really going to be under any pressure with... the gap has come down a bit, but it doesn't really matter whether you win by half second or a second. It's still a very confident victory, so assuming all players just make it round safely and no one does anything silly through the identity, which, you know, has been the case, we get onto a 7-9 scoreline. So there is either one round left of this, of the entire Overdrive Div 1 League phase. This would be the end of the League phase, potentially this round, but we could well have a whole other map to go.
Well, it's only one way to find out. First up, the start, everybody. Makes it through clean this time around, so we're starting under a good auspice for the outcome of this round being a little bit more contested than what we've seen previously. Right now, Lingo just a little bit off of the pace. 2/10 down. It will be Heave and Wosal first, and second Scrappy fighting hard and trying to fight tooth and nail for that second place, and thus trying to get Cook one more map away from the Gen.GxWeibo contingent, and we go a little bit too high on that convex platform for Wosal, dropping him back up to third, and he clips the snow, gets away with it. Lingo full snow picks at the apex of checkpoint 7. Scrappy takes advantage of a very slow checkpoint 7 corner from Wosal to move up into second position, and unless something goes catastrophically awry for the Belgian, we might be going on to game number 5, which will be Greece. Heave still very much in the lead, looking to uphold the individual honor of the Gen.GxWeibo crew on their own map pick. Scrappy in second. He has the gap to completely coast all the way to the finish line. 105.571, a solid time for Heave. He did everything he could. Also, Wosal did everything he could, but it is not enough, and it will be on a 10-9 scoreline that Gen.GxWeibo will concede their map pick. We've seen first map picks won by their respective teams, the second map picks being traded by either team, and now we go for one final map, and it will be Greece that will decide who will finish 5th in Division 1.
Yeah, one map to decide it all. And I think it's going to be almost impossible to call here. You know, there hasn't been a team that has looked particularly better. I feel like Cook have been maybe a little bit more consistent. Gen.GxWeibo often seem to have a little more peak pace, but we've seen, I think, of the 4 tracks, 3 of them have come down to the wire. We've had an overtime, we've had 2 of them go to kind of a 7-9 scoreline, where it hasn't been decided until the second half of the final round even. So if we get that again from Greece, I'm going to be very, very happy. It's always fun to see a 5-map decider And it's always nice to see these players fighting so hard, tooth and nail, for just a bit of pride in the league standing. These aren't teams that are able to get into the top 4 currently, and they aren't at risk of relegation. So it is all for pride, and they're taking that pride very, very seriously.
Yeah, and taking a look at the stats there, well, it was the decider, but Wosile, especially before Overdrive was played during the DreamHack Birmingham tournament, was one of those that would really push the limits on the final sector of Greece, especially that long slingshot, that long left-hander in the dirt from checkpoints 12 all the way to 13. He was the one that always pushed so close to the outside wall, seemingly getting away with it on a very regular basis. In Overdrive, he hasn't really been all that lucky, but nevertheless, out of 53 rounds that Gen.GxWeibo played on this map that have been reported to ECM, 12 of those have been won by Wosile. He does have 7 last place finishes and 1 DNF to his accord, but all in all, might be one of the stronger players overall on this map. He has the median that is the only median out of those that are on the server that is into the 113s, a 113.830 median time, complemented by a 113.389 best time in match. Not quite the fastest that you can see from Wosile, but still good enough to get the job done most of the time.
Well, it hasn't been a good start from Heave, having an early clip in this first round, so Wosile is going to have to find some of those stronger times. But currently actually finds himself into 3rd place, and I feel like Cook have really managed to get a lot of aces at the start of maps. I think we've seen it at least twice, maybe 3 times. And we're looking to try and replicate it again one last time here on Greece. But if China was a map where there's a lot of kind of mistakes at the start and then the end tends to be somewhat consistent, this track is the complete opposite. All sorts of chaos can and usually does happen on this identity, and the chaos this time is well, Wosile has done an exceptional job of it, managed to get past both Cook players and turn that potential Cook ace into a draw. So yeah. I'm sure Gen.GxWeibo will definitely take that after Heave start.
And what happened there was, I think you might have briefly caught it, but there was a bit of a slowdown on the nosedive before the identity courtesy of Lingo, which is what prompted Wosile to get a chance to thus spark an attack against the 2 Team Cook guys, in an attack that was very successful, thus allowing that scoreline to be of 1-1 at the end of round number 1. Going into the second round, Wosile going a little bit too inside on that banked grass corner and getting a little bit of airtime going into checkpoint number 2. Lingo will be taking the lead ahead of Heave. Wosile and Scrappy regroup together as we go into the ice slide. A little bit of a loss of grip momentarily for Scrappy, who gets back into it, but loses a lot of speed at the exit of that ice slide. And at checkpoint number 5, he will be in 4th place, make that 3rd as his teammate clobbers the apex, or not even the apex, the side of the blocks on through the first drop-down staircase section. He promoted up into the lead. Wosile into 2nd. That might be the ace that they need.
Yeah, Lingo, super inside there. That wasn't even close to being on the road, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, it's given Gen.GxWeibo a very good opportunity to get an early ace here. They might even find themselves leading a map before the final round, which doesn't tend to be the case. They seem to be having a good start to the identity so far. Only a couple more steps to go. And Gen.GxWeibo do look to hold on. Oh, they do not! They do not! Heave, inspired by the synchronized jumps on China, looks to try and have another backflip depth. Really going for the gymnastics in this.
Well, credit to Heave, he still managed to make it. But look, he tried to cut it too close. He tried to go for such a tight line over the hole, and he ended up clipping the very border, the neon that acts as a bit of a decorative implement, and that prompted him to do one heck of a backflip, I gotta tell you. But overall, they still managed to come away with the victory and the lead. But that's one way to throw an ace in the bin, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like every time I've watched this map, I've always been like, someone's gonna clip that hole eventually, and through certainly of matches I've cast here and of ones I watched at DreamHack Birmingham, I never actually saw it happen. And like Chekhov's gun finally being fired right at the end of league phase, someone finally goes flying on it in quite comedic fashion. Does at least still end up with a victory for Gen.GxWeibo. So they do get a small advantage, but yeah, it was a very costly mistake to lose that ace there on the decider map 5. And Cook looking to try and capitalize, trying to fight back here, as Lingo having a very good start. Scrappy in the fight for 2nd as well, does drop behind through that dirt section. And, this is all going to be decided by the identity, whether or not Scrappy can try and get past Tool, and whether or not Lingo will hold on. Lingo not seeming to have any issues. He
slow down from
does have an issue. Let's Scrappy back through, and we are tied up 4-4.
Might have had the bottom of the car scrape against the edge of the final block on the identity. That's a painful way to lose that one. And yeah, just to put the period on the finish that we saw a little bit earlier on with the victory for Gen.GxWeibo, that's just getting a little bit greedy, maybe trying to attack that hole around the outside before the finish line as we go into the next round. Round 4 is underway, and this time Scrappy, an absolute shocker of a start for the Belgian, will be over a second away from the leading trio composed of his teammates Heave and Wosal in no particular order, because you can see that the positions are continuing to shuffle corner after corner and checkpoint after checkpoint. The best amount of speed at the exit of the ice slide from Sector 1 will be going the way of Wosal, promoting himself up into the lead, and Lingo also looking to be a bit of a standstill before the first staircase drop down, will be out of contention for the top 2 even, so might be just, again, the break that Gen.GxWeibo need, but surely they make it to the finish line in 1-2.
Surely, right? We've never seen any mistakes heading into the Greece finish. I mean, Lingo still very much in touching distance of 2 players here, and a player who had to look pretty quick on Greece, it has to be said, not going to be a threat this time. So yeah, it is a really golden opportunity here for Gen.GxWeibo to be able to pick up an ace. Few more jumps to go. Heave avoids making that mistake again, does actually get across the line unscathed. Yep. Hasn't had the best time on that identity so far, but really manages it in that round. That I think has mattered quite a lot, because the 7-4 scoreline, probably the biggest advantage we've seen Gen.GxWeibo have at any point in this entire match.
Match point take 2 then for Gen.GxWeibo, who are definitely, as we said, like, not only through the match, but through the match, both teams are more lumbering through than anything else, like, except maybe for Brazil, where Cook were looking a lot more dominant, a lot more assertive. Here, yeah, like, Greece, China, USA, France, just a lot of really picking away at each other's mistake, a lot of messy rounds, really, that have occurred, and so far, Gen.GxWeibo taking advantage of a messy round that happened beforehand on the Cook side, but right now Heave a little bit off the mark and going way wide in the final part of the first staircase before checkpoint 7. He will be relegated down to last place. It's all down to Wosal now to try and anchor the fort and keep that 3-point lead intact. Scrappy going way wide onto that long NASCAR turn before checkpoint number 10. Wosal under threat from Lingo, who goes close to the wall before checkpoint number 11, and Heave now racing to penalty. He's made the junction back to Scrappy, so all 4 within a 10th to a 10th and a half going into the identity. Who gets the best nosedive? It will be Lingo, washing a bit wide, however. It will be Scrappy trying to take the fight to Wosal to try and make it a counter ace. 14 Cook, is he going to be able to parlay that into the proper scenario? The answer is a no. Lingo will make it a victory for Team Cook as Scrappy finishes 3rd. Wosal 36 milliseconds behind, and that's probably the cleanest and most contested run that we've seen in the entire match.
Yeah, I'd say so. All 4 players making it to the finish line, separated by pretty small margins. Yeah, we haven't seen that too often between these 2 teams. I think my kind of pre-match prediction was that we'd see a lot of crashes, because there's a lot of inconsistent players in this match, and yeah, that has certainly been proved true up until that round. So Cook keeping themselves in it, and really not that far away from getting onto their own match point here, and if they can hold on here, they've got a real opportunity for an ace. That would be massive. This match still so likely to go in either direction. This has been a brilliant watch as it heads towards the conclusion. Lingo and Scrappy are staying in ace formation here on Greece, trying to get themselves up onto 9 points.
Yeah, well, right now, this round is very much a contradiction of the previous round, where we're seeing very clear gaps that have been somewhat cemented by the time we reach checkpoint number 5 at the exit of the ice slide, although I do say that we see Heave trying to make the fight a little bit more interesting for 2nd place as he continues to go tooth and nail against Scrappy. Lingo has a 2/10 lead to work with. He gets a bit of a wonky landing into the identity, although Heave clubbers the side of the platform midway through, forces himself to respawn, and with that, Wosal steps up and picks away the 2nd place from Scrappy by less than 0.05 of a second, and with that, Gen.GxWeibo are still in the fight, although that 3-point gap has whittled down to a single point, 9-8. Cook with an ace can still very much completely cook Gen.GxWeibo's chances of retaining number 5.
Yeah, that was such an important switch of positions there for Wozal to be able to get up in second in the 9v8 from Cook, because it is ever so slightly advantage to Gen.GxWeibo, so even a draw would be enough for them to be able to pick up this match. This could well be the final round, but a victory for Cook, and we could head into our second overtime. All players still in contention so far. Wozal getting a poor exit from the ice. It's going to drop down to fourth by quite a margin. That's probably at least 2/3 of a second. So Scrappy and Lingo fighting, trying to get into first and third to at least prolong the match. If first and second would be enough to win the whole thing.
It's going to be all eyes on Heave now. He holds the cards. He holds the keys to potentially force this into another overtime map, and he has to fight against the likes of Lingo, who in the previous round posted a 113.230, absolutely blistering pace from the Canadian. Heave will be fighting against Scrappy to try and get an overtime extracted from there, maybe even a draw in case Lingo fails. Here comes the push from the Frenchman from Weibo Gaming. He moves up to second. Can he try to push for first? The answers are no, and for the second time of the series, we go into overtime. 10 points apiece on either side. The winner takes it all.
There is nothing to separate these two teams. We played through 5 whole maps and we're still on the same scoreline as at the very start. So, yeah, 10-10 here. Gen.GxWeibo versus Cook. It is really a case of who blinks first to some extent here. Is anyone going to make that super costly mistake? Currently, looking like all players are keeping it clean. Lingo a little bit behind, but 2temps is still in the margin that can be caught up. And looks to be caught up almost immediately as Lingo gets a pretty good ice exit. Wozal into first for now as we go through the steps, and
Scrappy had a very significant clip that turned into disaster, but somehow gets away with it. But we'll be paying the price with a 3/10 now, make that almost 3.5 gap compared to the leading trio. And now Lingo trying to step up to force this into a second consecutive overtime, goes close to the wall onto checkpoint 11, which is going to be compromising his speed on the way into the dirt. Wozal takes advantage of that, and so does Heave. It is a 3-way fight for what will be likely the win of the match for Gen.GxWeibo. Lingo washing a bit outside before the start of the identity. Here comes the push from Heave. Can Wozal trying to make it a 2-pronged attack? That will be successful. The answer at the finish line will be a yes. Great identity from Wozal with a 113.4, 35, 61 milliseconds ahead of Lingo, and with a 12-11 score, Gen.G snatch away that final map from Cook's hands. A 3-2 score means that they will thus finish 5th in the Division 1 standings.
What a match. What an absolutely brilliant match. And that is the wrap on the league phase of Overdrive as well. And what a brilliant, brilliant one to end it on. I think that might be possibly the closest 2v2 match I've ever seen.
Among the closest, yeah, but certainly not the punchiest. I think we can say that, because it's I keep repeating, but it feels like both teams were more lumbering through than anything else. We weren't exactly seeing anything stellar, bar a couple of rounds. So, for instance, that .2 that Lingo drove in the penultimate round, or some of the rounds that we may have seen on China, or for instance, but yeah, it's been close, but in terms of pace, I think we could turn that up several notches if we really want to talk about the greatest 2v2 matches ever seen. So I agree that it was a hotly contested match and a very entertaining one to watch, but the best one, we might need to hold our horses there.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some good ones coming up, kind of into the playoff stage as well. I guess the wording I was going for was closest.
Closest, I agree.
Closest, yeah, perhaps not the best. Lots of mistakes coming out from both teams. Not the fast pace we've ever seen, but in terms of how closely matched two teams have been, that was absolutely brilliant. So,
all right, with that, I think we should take a little bit of a look at the standings that will be updated in a few moments' time. In fact, here they come right out of your way. Here are the final Division 1 standings. You can see that row of 9s. Everybody has played all their games. Pack B, Big and All Gamers have all 8 match wins and 1 match loss, but by virtue of the map diff, it is Pack B leading the standings with +22, +20 for Big, +17 for All Gamers, and you saw it earlier on today. DP Neon with their 5th match win of the season are number 4 and will be through into the playoffs along with the top 3. Then Gen.GxWeibo will be finishing in 5th with the map diff going the way of DP Neon. They have a +5 map diff on the Paco Neon side compared to a -5 map diff for Gen.GxWeibo, Cook in 6th, Orglis in 7th, Fit in 8th, Navi in 9th, who will thus have to fight for survival in the barrage against Ragnarok, and Soul, who will be demoted to Division 2 in split number 2 and make way for Team Shift. In fact, here are the standings after all of the matches have been done. You can see, of course, the first place of Shift, who are going to be making their way through to Division 1. Ragnarok, as I said, playing against Navi during the barrage. We see also Heretics, BS Plus, Tempo Bros, and Team Pivo, who will be locked into Division 2 for the next split. And the last 4 teams of Division 2, Halcyon, Vabene, Loading, and Evolupa, will have to fight for a Div 2 shot in Split 2 against the top 4 of the Continentals that will be in the up and down matches or promo regs that will also be happening on the same day as the barrage, which I think is going to be on the 29th. And with that, I think it's about time to close up shop for us here on the stream. We're not going to be streaming the Continentals, I don't think. There's some other stuff that is happening over the weekend, and it's kind of hard to kind of gather everybody up to be able to bring you coverage. I hope you understand that, but I'm suspect that there's going to be across the 3 regions, of course, NCSA, EMEA, and APAC. Various different streamers, different POV streams that you can follow the Continentals along with, and it will be very important as well to follow along to know who will be the 4 teams that will be fighting against the bottom 4 Division 2 teams as well. But there's still a lot of action going on Overdrive, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Do you have any final words, Pastor, before we close up shop?
I don't think so, just that although the league phase might be done, Overdrive Split 1 certainly is not over yet. The most important match is still yet to come, and yeah, if we get matches as close to that one, I'll be happy. But again, we're going to have some of the best players in the world kind of going in to the final playoff stage. So I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be so much action to watch. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, make sure, of course, to tune in for the playoffs. It's going to be at the end of May, and it's going to be exciting. Anyway, it's going to be time for us, as I said, to close up shop and set the stream off for tonight. I've been Thomas Mengos, aka G. I've been accompanied by the one and only Patster by my side for that final game of the day. Much love, be kind, stay safe, and until next time, Godspeed, people.
If